Guys, so today I want to talk to you about steel is real. You hear that saying thrown around. If you look at the hashtag steel is real on Instagram, everybody's posting up their steel bikes. Steel has a certain feel to it that people claim is a better feel than carbon or aluminum or even titanium. And it seems to be I think a highly misunderstood concept when you say steel is real, because not all steel is alike, number one. And steel has been around for a long time, and there's different types of steel. There is that air hardened, super light Reynolds 8x3 steel that is not chromoly. It's a different type of steel. There is chromoly 4130 steel, and there's different types of chromoly steel tube sets out there from different companies that are made differently. And do all those bikes feel better than an aluminum bike or a carbon bike? And I'm specifically referring to hardtail frames, because once you get into full suspension, that is too much dynamics to really evaluate that metal, for my purposes anyway. So I'm speaking specifically to hardtails and maybe even gravel bikes, because that's where we've seen this resurgence of metal bikes, with everybody wanting a steel or a Thai gravel bike. So steel can be made really, really nice, and it's been around for 100 years. And some of the really high-end classic bikes that were used by the Tour de France guys and were really high-end European, Columbus or Dedicati, and you could look up all those brands, and they really kind of fine-tuned and engineered those steel tubings to get a bike that was light and stiff and raceable. Personally, I've never owned a road bike. My first drop bar bike was a gravel bike, and I've never really got into that high-end type of classic steel bike frame, or just because road biking has never been my thing. So, but those bike frames were known to be made up really light, have a nice feel to them, and some of those champions swore by steel frames, and they would never choose a steel or a Thai frame, and always stick to that. And when aluminum and then carbon came along, a lot of them were stuck on that steel and said it's not going to be as good as a carbon bike is not going to feel as good as that steel. And to each his own. It's definitely not going to be as light. We all know that. So, is steel real, and why do you want a steel hardtail, and what are you using it for? Well, steel has also been used in the BMX industry for all your BMX bikes that are the heavier duty ones for jumping and stuff like that. I mean, the real lightweight ones for racing with the skinny tires were probably made with aluminum, but okay, thank you.
Welcome.
It's just me. But the ones that are used doing all those tricks at the skate parks or at those dirt parks were steel, and those guys were, of course, those guys are super talented, but they liked having that solid, really durable frame because they're crashing it all the time. I mean, you don't get to that level of gymnastics on a bike, if you will, without crashing a few times. And they crash them, go back out and ride them, and those bikes were really bomb-proof. And then steel mountain bikes came along, and some of the original steel frames were really, really heavy and had that same concept in mind, that you got to make it super durable because people are going to be crashing them and there's warranty issues and everything else. And those bikes would be 6-7 pound frames, really durable. But when you're mountain biking and you want that lightness to make it a little bit easier for the climb, and also you want that lightness in the tubing walls to have it kind of resonate and pick up some of those smaller vibrations, you can't make it heavy duty. It has to be a lighter, thin wall steel. So there are a few companies now, a lot of companies now, especially custom, that are making the lighter weight steel frames. Kodik comes to mind, and there's a few other. You go look on a YouTube channel called Hardtail Party. I really like his YouTube channel, and he's got a lot of information about hardtail bikes. And anyway, if you're gonna get like a steel bike that's mass produced, though, the odds are it's going to be a heavier steel frame, even if it has that label that it's Reynolds steel tubing. Not all of them say Reynolds 853 air hardened, but it could be the Reynolds 725 or something like that, or 5, I think it's 525 is the other one. And you can look at the Reynolds site and see the different descriptions for the different type of tubing. But when you get into what I've done with some of my bikes, now I got lucky with this Esker Hayduke because it ended up being a light steel frame and not overbuilt. And it wasn't intended for that guy that needed something super burly for jumping, or super stiff to keep it from flexing when he's bike packing. It was made to be an everyday rider bike. So I clipped out right now. Anyway, so if you look around, take a look at the weight of that frame, take a look at the reviews, and if possible, go out and ride different steel frames, and you will quickly realize that all steel is not real, so to speak, and it may have a different feel, but if you get that really thick chromoly 4130 steel frame from Kona or one of the other big brands, it's going to be a heavy frame, and it's going to be not, sure, it looks great, but it's not going to feel like a Kodik or one of the other steel frames that are made thin wall. So that's just my point. Everything you got to put in perspective. I personally like as much bounce and flex as possible in my frames because I'm not trying to PR and race my bikes. If I wanted to PR race bike, I would probably get a super stiff lightweight carbon frame and super stiff lightweight carbon wheels, and I would hate it probably. Talk to you later. Hello.